Hi, welcome back to my channel. I've missed you guys. I went to Asia, but forgive me, I did not vlog at all because I forgot my vlog camera. I did take some photos. Follow me on Instagram, you can see. I posted a lot on my story, but I was living in the moment and I wasn't prioritizing filming because I was just trying to enjoy my time. It was my vacation. I'm not gonna bring a vlog camera and a mic and my whole setup, and I don't regret it because I wrote a lot. Some of you guys have DM'd me and messaged me, and the comments on the last videos made me so happy and sad at the same time because I felt guilty for not filming. And yeah, so I missed you guys. I'm here now. My goal each year is to read 100 books, and I usually am able to attain it. My goal for 2025 is to be more intentional. Yes, I still want to read 100 books, but I want to read different perspectives and different voices, maybe authors that I've never read before. And for 2024, I read 115 books. 115 books is a lot to try to narrow down into one video. So if you guys are curious about the books that I've read, again, I can show you or link you here. Ta-da! First off, 𝑓 by Borges. I have to say that this is very metaphysical. It's a mix of parables and metaphysics. I don't want you to feel intimidated by him. He writes very beautifully. It is a little more difficult to comprehend at times. I want to read a little excerpt of what I mean, why I say Borges is so respected and loved and adored. Then a singular event occurred, which only now do I believe I understand. I thought I was emptying the cup of anger, but in the dregs I encountered an unexpected flavor, the mysterious and almost terrible flavor of happiness. If you're a huge poetry fan, this second book is for you. This is 𝑓 by Ted Hughes. If you guys are not familiar with him, I like to say that he is the husband of Sylvia Plath, but he was also a poet as well. My feelings for him are kind of conflicted because he was terrible and awful to Sylvia Plath, of course, but as a writer, he was a damn good one. As a poet, he was a damn good one. This makes you feel like a child in his hands. Unlike Sylvia Plath, who was very sentimental and very I relate to her a lot. I feel like the way he writes about violence and beauty of nature is very unsentimental, but in a good way. I don't know. He's a man. Pike and View of a Pig, two of my favorites in here. Not too much on him because I got some issues with him. Next, this is the yearner in me, you guys. 𝑔𝑚ℎ, Sorrows of Young Werther. I think they actually are making a movie or a remake of a movie sometime this year or next year. I remember seeing an article on LitHub about all the books that are inspiring movies that are coming out. This one, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but the whole storyline of this love triangle from a young man who is deeply in love with the woman he can't have, and he does commit suicide because of it. I don't want you guys to just be under the impression that this is all that this book is, because that would do a great disservice. Of course, that is the main central plot, but there are beautiful observations that he generally I feel stuck with me more than just I love this girl and this girl doesn't love me kind of thing. I don't know. The romance of that aspect, yes, I love a man who yearns for a woman, but there are so many observations in here that I feel stuck out more to me. The way he describes his feelings, not just for a woman, but just in general, he is so observant and so in love with life, and that is also something that brings him to his own demise, his emotions, his strong intense emotions. So I don't know, it's a very hefty, when you feel things so deeply, it could be your downfall as well. Don't let this encourage you to yourself, but Very beautiful. Highly suggest. Okay, this is getting a little heavy. Some of these books are a little heavy, but you should know this by now. I promise I'm not. You know what? I'm not even gonna lie. I do like writing and reading depressing material. And it's not depressing like, it's just like I feel so strongly about so many things, and that's just who I am. Like I'm just that. Also, if you guys don't know, I am a Taurus. Born on April 23rd. Also born the same day as William Shakespeare. Like he also died on April 23rd, which is so poetic of him. Born and dead on April 23rd, his birthday. If that doesn't tell you anything, not saying I'm Shakespeare, I'm just saying we are dramatic people. We are dramatic people. And that's okay. The drama is what makes life interesting. Next recommendation, A Devil in Paradise by Henry Miller. I think this is it's only like 100 couple pages, about the second hand. This story is so funny. So imagine like you have this friend who just they just don't know how to help themselves. They just need help and you don't know how to say no. This is what Miller writes about. He writes about his ungrateful friend who he brought over. His friend is named Conrad, and basically Henry Miller brings him over and pays for his housing, his finances, his expenses, and his wife is also like, why would you do this? Ups and downs, and basically Conrad's a bitch. Like Henry Miller talks about this in such a funny and moving way, because there's, of course, he's a human, so Miller feels bad and he's trying his best to just understand that Conrad is a flawed person, his friend is a flawed person, but ultimately he learns how to create boundaries. If you're looking for a fun read, this one. It could be a little irritating because Conrad is a little irritating, but I highly suggest this. Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers revolves around the main character who is a mute and deaf man, and he kind of acts as a friend to everyone that he meets because he is deaf and mute, which allows people to feel like they're heard and understood by him. Some of the people that he meet also make like different rumors and believe different things about him, like he was sent to save them, or he sees visions, or he's like some kind of prophet. It's really funny, but all he does is listen, and they are grateful to him. But he also has a friend who is also dealing with the same things, and his friend unfortunately ends up in an asylum, and it doesn't fare well for our main character. The back of the book says, the characters are the damned, the voiceless, the rejected. Some fight their loneliness with violence and depravity, some with sex or drink, and some, like Mick, one of the characters, with quiet, intensely personal search for beauty. It really talks about the human condition and isolating factor of what it means to be human. Like there's just so much isolation. That is the epidemic of being a human, being lonely, and understanding how to navigate that. On my list, this is a little spicy, but I have to. Illiterate Passion. You know that song by Tinashe, like, is somebody gonna match my freak? These two people match each other's freak. So freaky and lovely and so intriguing and so scandalous, and I'm like blushing while I read it. Not in like a, like, oh my gosh, like how romantic, but more like, ooh, this is like lustful and intoxicating, and like just two yearners who spread each other's hearts and limbs, if you know what I'm saying. This book is very descriptive. It's just a bunch of letters that they wrote to each other back and forth, and they get real freaky in this. You just gotta open up and see what I mean. Open up your book and you might be opening up something else as well. The next book less scandalous. This Is It by Alan Watts. Yeah, he focuses on philosophy, religion, consciousness, and there's an illustration in this book that I think it still sticks with me to this day. There's an old fairy tale of a fisherman who once caught a marvelous golden fish. For the fish spoke, promising him that if he would return it to the water, he would be granted 3 wishes. Having released the fish, he went home to his wife to talk over what the wishes should be, on the assurance that the fish would be waiting for him at the same place the following day. The old lady sent him back with the request that their broken-down cottage be transformed into a mansion with servants and spacious lands. That night, the fisherman came home to find that all had happened as requested. But in the course of only a few days, the rapacious wife was hankering to be an archduchess with a vast palace equipped with guards and retainers, with terraces and formal gardens, situated in the midst of a great feudal domain. And again, the wish was granted. Yet with one wish remaining, the wife's greed increased and increased, so that she made up her mind to wish for all that could be wished for, to be ruler of the sun and moon and stars, of the earth and mountains and oceans, of all birds in the air, fishes in the sea, and of all men in the world. But when the fisherman repeated her desire to the golden fish, it replied, "Such a wish is not mine to grant, and for her arrogance she shall be returned to the state from which she started." Returning that night, the fisherman found once again the broken-down cottage and his wife again in rags. And yet, in a way, her wish was granted. Read this book. Read this book. It also mentions LSD in it. Fun fact. Next book on the list is Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I want to mention that I also read last year in 2024 If Beale Street Could Talk. That was a recommendation from my ex-coworker. She no longer works with me, sad. And she recommended me that book. Literally, I don't read a lot of romances, but if you want to read a good romance, pick up James Baldwin. If you want to read anything beautiful, pick up James Baldwin. If you want to read anything sentimental, lovely, graceful, poetic, pick up James Baldwin. That's all I have to say. It's like a semi-autobiography of James Baldwin's life, relationship to the church, his family. I will say, when I was reading this, I feel like I was watching, again, like a telenovela, but like shit was going down, and always will be that man. He writes so gracefully, and I think it's really interesting because he has all the right in the world to be angry and hateful, and he knows that that's not going to attain anything, and he does that through his writing, just fighting hate with so much love. He talks about racism, of course. He also talks about religion and family expectations. I think this is his first book, and also, in my opinion, his finest. My favorite book from James Baldwin. Next one is Powers of Horror by Julia Kristeva. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. This is a philosophy book. This is the holy Bible of weird girls. That's the best way I can say it. I don't want to sound like a pick-me, like, oh my gosh, I'm so weird. No. It's just like unsettling. I should say that. This is the Bible, the holy Bible of unsettling girls. Basically theorizes off of Freud and Lacan and examines the fascination of fear and horror and why this is kind of distinguished from desire. So the best way I could describe it is like, for example, I'm not afraid of a lot of things, but the one thing that I am like extremely afraid of, but I'm also hugely, since I'm afraid of it, I'm so obsessed with it. I'm gonna put this as like a surface level example. Just bear with me. I fear them. I don't like rats or possums. I don't know. I'm starting to grow like weirdly obsessed with them, and I think it's funny because I am so disgusted with them, but I like search it out. Does that make sense? Like, for example, New York City size rats. I always talk about them with my friends and how they disgust me, but I always am so excited to like show them a picture of these huge rats. That's like a very surface level example. The next book that I wanted to mention was The Attention Merchants. This cover looks very businesslike. I do hide it because I do judge books by their covers, and I'm not ashamed of it because I'm usually right. I'm usually fucking right. But I promise this book is so relevant and so good, and I think everyone needs to read it. The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu. It is a business book, but it's not business like cryptocurrency. It's business like Tim Wu in this book talks about monetizing and the history of monetizing attention and why this is so essential right now, because and what we do with our attention is being profited and used and manipulated against us from greedy businessmen who try to capture it in every chance they can. And it's not just been because of technology, though it has increased because of technology. He just talks about how it's always been a thing. He talks about the history of radio stations, television, and the only reason why I know about this book is because in my few videos back, I mentioned How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. She referenced him. He was like, you know, when some authors write about a certain topic, they will usually pull sources. And I looked in the notes in the very back, and she pulled some quotes from The Attention Merchants. And I think why I love David Foster Wallace. Don't cancel me. He talks about this in a fictional way, like he writes it in a narrative, whereas in Tim Wu writes about it in like a non-fictional way, in like a psychological way. Does that make sense? Like, this is like business psychology, sociology, and David Foster Wallace is fiction or postmodern, modern lit. The next one is one of my favorites on this list. I read this book in maybe two sittings because I love this book so much. I wanted this specific copy because, like, look at how, like, just like appreciate that. The Door by Magda Szabo. She is a Hungarian writer. I was shopping with my mom. She and I do this thing where we will spend time together without like talking to each other because we're both kind of like introverted. I finished this in the seat of a Nordstrom Rack shoe center while my mom was scouring every single rack. And I don't regret it. I literally like felt like I was in this store, and I love a book that can do that. It's been a long time since I've been reading a book that can make me feel like I'm not where I currently am and not make it feel like escapism. Like it's a book that makes me like think and also question a lot of things. This book is talking about two women, one being a housekeeper, an older woman, and a writer, a younger woman who is married. And the whole book is focused on these two women. There's a lot of humor in this book. It's very charming. Like, it is very funny. There's guilt in it. There's love in it. Not romantic love, but love as in familial. Like, I feel like you can find yourself in both of these women. They both navigate this like 20-year relationship. They bond, they get close, and they have little fights. There's like a whole relationship topic about her dog, like the main character finding a dog and the dog falling in love with the housekeeper compared to the person who actually rescued it, which was the main character. Like, I think it's just really funny. Little birds. This is erotica. This is erotica. Warning, warning, erotica. There's fucking in this. There's nudity in this. There's sex in this. There is sensuality in this. One of my babies, one of my baby girls, literally my mother, she wrote 13 short stories in a world of sex and sexuality at a time where there was sexual repression, and she was part of this group where she earned $1 a day for writing about sex and pornography. And you know what? I respect it. because a lot of women were already ashamed of writing, and a lot of women were put down for writing. I respect it. She was just like, fuck it. Literally, fuck it. And I love it. The first story, I will say, is a little weird. It's very well written. That's all I'll say. You'll just have to find out. You'll just have to read it and find out what I mean. I'm not gonna spoil this. The next book, it's really commencement speech, but my friend Miss Jenny Odell, again, Inhabiting the Negative Space. She is the same person, yes, who wrote How to Do Nothing that I mentioned in another video of mine. You'll probably have seen it. That's why you're on my channel. Hello. Again. This is a hopeful meditation of inactive periods and why they can be a fertile space for design and creativity. She wrote this during COVID. She wrote this for school. And it's also about embracing the standstill to deepen our individual and collective attention and sensitivity to time. There are a bunch of photos, a bunch of sources, a bunch of artwork that are in here as well. And I think it's really important. Even though she wrote this in COVID, I think it is also, again, going in hand with the attention merchants, how we can combat and battle this with this. She's also a huge nerd. She bird watches, and I feel like I used to do that a lot when I was little with my grandma, because my grandma had a garden. Our attention and what we give our attention to is really important as human beings. I think now more than ever, what we give attention to with algorithms, what we pay attention to on our day-to-day can make us very miserable if we are not careful with it, and can also make us impatient and reckless and heartless. And I think that's where the aspect of touching grass is important. She doesn't say, oh yeah, just go out in nature, which is really annoying to hear, but she talks about how you can reformulate and really rebuild what you pay attention to and what you do with your attention, and how you can rebuild your attention by allowing the times of standstill to meditate, observe, learn, chill. I hope that makes sense, but very good. This is also a university book. It's Harvard University Graduate School of Design. So you won't be able to just buy this book off of the shelves. You can either buy it secondhand or you can order it. I recommend going to a library or going to your local bookstore and seeing if they can order it for you. That's how I attained this book at my job. Just ordering it and supporting local bookstores or libraries. Next book, My Mother Laughs by Miss Chantal Akerman. I am a fan of everything this woman does. I'm sure you are familiar with her films. Everyone is familiar with her films. If you're not, it's okay. There's still time. Do it before you die. In 2013, this whole book is like a memoir, but in 2013, Miss Ackerman's mother starts to fall very ill, and she records the most complicated and simple love that any human can and will face in their lifetime. And it's seeing your mother age and the complicated and simple relationship between a mom and a daughter. And as your mom ages, the roles of her caring for you are reversed to you caring for her. She talks about it in a very honest light. No, as a daughter of a mother who could be very difficult at times, this is something that hits really close to home. I feel like this hits home to any person who has a mother. Every person. It hits close to home for every person. You read this and you feel what Miss Ackerman is going through. You can't help but to empathize for both people, the daughter and the mother. Next book that I mentioned very briefly was The Flowers of Evil by 𝇢𝆸𝇢𝇢𝇢𝇢. This is a very short work, of course, but very powerful one. A lot of people reference this, and there's a good reason why. Because it considers mortality, grief, desire, the contradiction of existence and beauty that would usually be considered by society as ugly and immoral. It's for the romantic people, you know? Again, goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with the powers of horror. There's a theme. Attention, fear, objection. This video is gonna be so fucking long. Next book, 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. I read Antwerp by him, and that is a very short work compared to this. This is over 1,100 pages. It is the last novel of Bolaño's, and it explores immigration, existentialism. There's murder in this as well, murders of women specifically, and it's just an intriguing read because the descriptions of the murders are so yikes. Comfort, there's disgust, there's sentimental feelings. I don't know. I just remembered that one of the murders, there is sexual assault in this, so trigger warning, but the whole 9-hole penetration, and I was like, what was the other holes? Like, there's so many holes that a woman has, and I found out, but it is very, very intriguing. I won't say, it's just very devastating. It's very devastating, and it is a huge performance. Okay, my next book, please don't judge me. You guys are gonna be like, this bitch is cunt. Is cunt. I believe I'm funny. Critique of Pure Reason. Will I say it is an easy read? No, that's why this is further down in the video. This is not for everyone. I get it. Reason why people reference this? Because it's actually very relevant. Okay, I broke this down in very simple-minded terminology because I am a simple-minded creature. The best way I could describe this is the distinction between appearance and things in themselves. He does say that you can know something through experience, but that doesn't ultimately mean that's the reality of that something. Like, when we speak of different experiences, then these are only so many perceptions, all of which belong to one and the same general experience. To think an object, then, is not the same as to know an object. Let me read that again. To think an object, then, is not the same as to know an object. Knowledge involves two parts. First, the concept, through which an object is thought at all, the category, parentheses. And secondly, the intuition, through which it is given. If that doesn't make sense to you, so you can say that, for example, this pen, you can observe that this is a pen. Why? Because it has the elements of a pen and what makes up a pen. Does that necessarily mean your experience with the pen is what the pen is in itself? No. And you know why? Because you don't know that pen. Another example. Let's say you are walking by a stranger and you guys both look at each other. You can be perceived many ways from this stranger by your appearance. Let's say you're dressed as, I don't know, like a preppy girly girl. Only you know, for example, that you like horror movies or philosophy books. That stranger passing by, though, his perception of you is that you might be a very well-dressed, pretty girl who might be a little vapid. That is his experience of you. That is his perception of you. Does that mean that it is the reality of you, though? No. Same with, for example, the concept of time. Time in itself was not dependent on us as humans. Time has always existed. But also, the word time in itself is something that humans made so that we can measure. But then again, time is not, we measure time by the things that change. That doesn't necessarily mean that is what time is it itself. Time, like, it's so hard to explain, and this is why I'm not cunt. Like, I'm not cunt. Cunt. I can't like put so much emphasis on what we perceive on things as their actual reality, when in reality that is something that we can use as a definition of that thing, that object, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is what that thing or object necessarily is. That's just our perception of it. My camera is overheating, so I have to make this quick. Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. Love everything Anne Carson does. This is based on Hercules and Geryon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Oh my god. There is your warning. There is assault in this. Young red-winged monster growing up in a very normal area, and he struggles to fit in, and he also gets sexually abused by his brother. The Monk by Matthew Lewis. It is a gothic novel, very dark, but it's also ironic, violent. There's also sexual assault in this as well. But it is about a monk who is torn between his spiritual vows and temptations of physical pleasure. The monk likes to fuck. There's so many twists and turns in this book that I can't tell you because it makes the book enjoyable, and when you're reading this, you'll understand this picture. You know the Vine boom sound effect that's like boom, and he did this boom, like it's one after another. This is this story. Yeah, that's it. My camera is literally about to die if I repeat words. It's been a while since I talked to a camera. Thank you for listening to me. If it made sense, great. If it didn't, you know better. I think I'm catching a cold. I got off of work and I decided to film because I love you guys and I miss you guys, and I feel guilty that I didn't film a lot. But again, follow my Instagram. You'll see my stories. You'll see my posts. I need to take a hot, warm shower, drink some emergency because I can feel a sore throat coming. I love you guys. Please, 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 please like, subscribe, comment, anything you want to watch from me. Literally, if you want me to film whole, y'all are gonna have to pay for that. I'll film another hole, the hole that is going in through my brain right now, because 2024 left some damage inside, and 2025 so far has not been as kind, but we still have a couple months. And again, comment anything you want to see from me. I will try my best to reference it. My nose is literally leaking. My camera's dying. My Uber's on the way. You guys know what you guys subscribe to. So hopefully everything made sense. If not, then oh well. Good night.